Good day, all. Today, my special guest is Dr. Jeff. How are you, sir?
I'm good to see you, Tom. Very grateful to be here. I'm doing well and glad you
Yes,
reached out.
awesome. Your expertise is going to resonate with a lot of people. And our theme today is the communication that goes on within a family unit, parent and student, regarding their transition from high school to college. And it seems like the same thing goes on every year, where there tends to be a disconnect from many families with their communication, right?
Right.
And so I want you're an expert in communication and leadership, um, and persuasion, which I love, and we could talk all day about that.
Hmm.
But for the sake of this conversation, let's get into addressing a few of these issues that I think are important, and I think you do as well. Um, so, where does a communication do you think start or should start with a high school student? What year? And talking to their parents about their interests, their ideas, right? And I say that it could be a major, it could be they may not know what they want to do, geographics, timelines, and most importantly, the finances.
Right. Yeah, I think so. It's a big challenge. And I would say that probably the biggest challenge that I've noticed, which is to me a communication issue, is the role change. So for 16, 17 years, the role of parent and child has been pretty well defined on, who's responsible for what, who makes the decisions, who makes the choices, who has the authority. Now, the one of the big issues that people have when they're especially going to college, and then even coming back from college, is that now things are completely different. Like for the student, for the child, the whole role has changed. I'm independent now. I'm doing what I want to do. You go to college, I make my own decisions. I'm out whenever I want to do. I make my decisions about my classes. And for the parent, it's no, you're still my baby. Or
Yeah.
no, we're the ones that do that. And so, what I think should happen is a process, especially over high school, of parents and students talking about the role change that's going to happen. And, from my perspective, it's the responsibility of the parents to learn to let go and transition their students into independent adults. And that's difficult to do. So I'm a big believer in having those discussions starting in even seventh, eighth grade, ninth grade, so that parents are preparing their students in advance on what's coming. And a lot of times, I just know from my own past experience, I didn't have that. Basically, it got to my end of my junior year and my senior year, and my parents had always talked to me about college, but I was kind of like deer in the headlights. And then, everybody's asking you, what are you going to do? So what college are you going to do? What's your major? What are you going to do? And I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm good at math. I'm going to do engineering, and so I didn't really have the conversations or the discussions, no offense to my parents. Neither one of them went to college. And it was just, I think the earlier you start and have those conversations, we call it meta communication, which is really talking about the roles that you're having, parent, child, and really setting expectations or having the conversations on how things are going to be going. Those need to be like kind of specific times and events where you sit down and go, listen, son, let's talk about thinking about college. And, I don't think I even did that well. And I didn't realize, how important things were for my own kids. At ninth grade, I wish I would have had a conversation with my son going from eighth grade to ninth grade about, listen, your grades matter here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to cost me, I'm going to lose 15 grand in scholarships if your GPA is here versus here, so like where are we being serious, navigating, helping people to understand finances and whether or not college is even a right option. So I think, obviously every high school will have those pathways and the guidance counselor that will be meeting junior year, these are the things you should be doing. Just spring of your junior year, fall of your senior year, have you applied to colleges? Have you looked into it? Have you taken a college and career test? All of those things, if you're in a good school, the school will provide those for students, and hopefully parents are involved in that. And if your school doesn't, as a parent, it's important to be proactive. And I would say earlier on the freshman, it doesn't have to be significant, but like as you walk through it, it kind of has to increase in seriousness. Even if we're not going to college, we're going to take a year off, we're going to work or something like that. So that's where I encourage our people to do that and our families to do that as well. So.
You're hitting all the good points, and that I'm the same as you. That I didn't have that direction, that guidance, and you can't blame. I couldn't blame my parents, but you had to figure it out yourself. But so, what about the parents that maybe assume that the school is going to do all the work or guide them? And maybe so, but if the parents don't have that intellect or that knowledge, I should say, to guide them, that's tough, right? That's tough. Like you.
Correct. Yeah, and most parents assume the school is going to do that.
Yeah.
Parents assume that their school is going to do the college and career preparation. And to be fair, if you've never navigated the college entrance and the exploration of college for your student, it's a black box. It's a black hole. You don't know what it is. Somebody says words like FAFSA and major and undergrad, and all of that terminology is foreign to you. You don't know where to begin. And so it's very difficult for parents. And a lot of times, to be quite honest, parents are even left out of the loop of that stuff when a school is even doing well. If a school does well, a lot of times they're not even communicating to parents. They're just walking the kids through, okay, let's do this, let's do this. And the kid, if it's like most high school kids, they're not coming home and telling mom and dad, this is what the guidance counselor said. They just
Mhm.
come home and say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a math major.
But
Well,
hold that thought a minute, because we know that a guidance counselor has A to F, right? Last name could
right.
alphabetically could have 400 students. So
Correct.
yeah, the time dedication to that student is could be very limited. What about, where do parents draw a line in terms of being a helicopter parent with this?
Yeah, again, I think we're in a different culture than when, part of the part, I think if I'm, speculating, I think our technologies have contributed to the helicopter parent. When I was growing up, probably much like you, there were no cell phones. I wasn't on the tracking apps with my parents, all times of the year. And so my parents just had to kind of go, oh, yeah, I hope they're going to be okay, And so you're in a media environment where the narratives of danger and all of these things that are happening to students are quite different than it was when I was growing up. And you're seeing things on, be it X or Facebook or Instagram or wherever you're getting your news from. And, those platforms have a vested interest in making the stories clickable.
Mhm.
Okay, so they have to report the things that are controversial or horrific because that's what drives traffic. That's how those platforms make money. That's how those platforms gain followers. If you've ever done anything on any of those platforms, and I learned this myself, it's when you put a controversial post up there, those are the ones that get the most views, the
Mhm.
most engagement. It drives the polarization. And so we tend to believe that that's the reality of what's going on. And so all of those things have contributed, I think, for parents kind of being hyper vigilant about what's going on with their kids. And, I would also think that there's a reality to a more dangerous world. So parents, it's very tough. Do you have kids?
I do.
Yeah. So you know how tough it is of how do you let go? Like to me, for myself and my wife, our strategy has been parenting is a process of letting go. Like if your kid is going to be a functional adult, You have got to figure out over the period of time that you have them, how to let go and prepare them to be on their own and apart from you. And it's difficult to do.
Absolutely.
It's very difficult to do that because you love those kids. I heard a stat, which kind of, I mean, I think I knew it, but it didn't sink in. And it was you will spend the majority of time as a parent with your kid when they are an adult.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
we don't think about that,
No.
but like you're with your kid for 18 years when they're a child, but you're with your child, if all things go well, for another 30 or 40 years,
Hmm.
50 years perhaps, if you
Hmm.
live long enough, while they're an adult. And so the focus of parenting, in my opinion, should be how am I going to relate to my child when they're an adult? How do I prepare in these 18 or so years and prepare them so that we have a good, healthy, functional relationship as adults going forward? And so, but there's no, there's parenting books out there, but it's difficult to kind of prepare
Hard.
yourself for that. So, yeah.
It's hard.
So I think that's important. And the responsibility is on parents, really, to not be a helicopter parent.
I had to throw in the but, but
Hmm.
letting them go and getting to that college stage, whether they're at home or they commute or they traditionally go to school to live. The but part, I mean by that is, let's talk the financial piece,
Right.
right? I'm paying for you to go. Cool. We're on the same page. We get to a point where it's like, this ain't working out for whatever reason. Then
Right.
dial back and then figure out, okay, well, do you come home? Right. You obviously probably should go work full time. But again, it's just funny that the difference in family dynamics and what works for one and works one doesn't work for the other. But let's talk about the finance piece.
Yeah. So every parent has got to make a decision on how that works. I think the college and university system is taking advantage of kids and the school loan. I'm sure you're aware of like the billions of dollars of outstanding student loan and student debt. And, the previous presidential administration had made efforts to release student debt. That's a bubble financially, and kids don't know what they're getting into. And
Nope.
they're not, you know, a lot of them have not been prepared financially to understand, hey, what happens if you take $50,000 in a year in student debt? Yeah, you can push that off for years and years, but like, eventually that's going to have to come due. So, again, here, this is a story. In my PhD program, I had people that were in the program with me that were in their late 40s, early 50s. And the comment was, yeah, I'm in this program because I can keep not having to pay my school loans.
Oh my goodness.
So you're like, what?
Wow.
So like the financial literacy piece for a lot of people, they just don't know what they're getting into and they don't understand it. Back in my day when I was growing up, it was like the credit card debt. People didn't realize, that if I knew a girl, this is going to be a funny story, but she just thought that if she had a checkbook, she could just write checks for whatever. Oh, I got checks, so I can, and give me $100 or I'm going to pay for this, and not realizing how that's connected. And she ended up becoming a banker, if you can believe
My goodness.
it.
That is crazy.
Yeah, but like, the lack of financial education. So I think there's got to be a piece. Hopefully, for a student, the school is talking about financials with college and career. If not, parents, if your student is going to college, you do have a responsibility to do the research, understand what's going on. We made decisions for our kids about how they were going to pay for college and what we were going to do and how they were going to get scholarships, so that it was affordable. I didn't want any of my kids coming out in the hole $80,000,
They're late.
starting life
Yeah.
in the hole $80,000 because they took 10 grand a semester in student loans to have to pay off. Because then you're you're working for 25, 30 years to try to pay off $80,000 in that. So there is a responsibility, I think, on parents to do the research. Of course, there's tons of resources out there, but you have to kind of be proactive. And if not, students should understand that. And that's just really an education piece. And I think that has to be a part of those conversations. In ninth grade, if you're able to tell a student, look, if your GPA is 3.8 this year, you may end up qualifying for $50,000, $60,000 in scholarships if you keep that up, because somebody's going to have to pay for this, and so it's huge. And a lot of people are foregoing college because the system, I don't want to say it, but it kind of preys upon the people that are
Absolutely.
ignorant of that. And these colleges are just going out saying, come, 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 come. Here's loans, here's loans, here's loans. We're getting paid, and you're now stuck with the bills.
Yeah, they
And
don't care. I don't think.
they don't care because, they're getting the money that they need to get, and if you have your student in college, they can't, like for us, my youngest is in college now. I can't enroll him or he can't get classes. He can't even register for classes, which is probably I would assume the majority, until the bills decided.
Yeah, right.
So you've got payments and bills decided. And if you don't pay your bill and it's not completely paid off either by loans or by payments or whatever by the end of the semester, you're not getting it
Your
for the
transfer.
next semester. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. Yeah,
you don't really
but
know.
I guess the ignorance piece, if we want to use that word, at 17, 16, 17-ish, I don't know, right? It's always a tough argument. We would hope that there's financial literacy involved in that, even with the parent, but we don't know what the parent's headspace is either.
No.
But like you said, preying upon the family unit to take that money and run, because everybody, every parent wants their kid to succeed and go to college. Oh, wow, Jimmy got accepted to X, Y, and Z. Life is going to be great, and we'll worry about it later, right?
Right.
You come out and those payments are, circle the pencil, $1,000 a month. Whoa, man, I want an apartment, I want a car, maybe, tiptoe down the future to get married in the next couple of years, whatever,
Right.
right? That's a disconnect. And I'm glad
Yeah.
you shared that information. Dr. Jeff, anything else you think is important for folks to know out there in our universe of the United States that would help them tighten up that communication gap before they head off to school? I don't hold you too long.
Yeah, no, I would say for students and parents, the biggest advice I could give is to try to address reality versus addressing the way you think it should be. A lot of people have made assumptions about things that are not true, that are not realistic, that they just believe.
Give me an
That's
example.
what's that?
Give me an example.
Give you an example. Had a student in one of my college classes. She was paying, I think it was $80,000, maybe 40, 50 grand a year to go to college. She was a double major. She had to get up and give a presentation, and part of her presentation was, when I graduate, I have 2 degrees, and so I'm going to be starting out with, $90,000 a year, $100,000 a year in income. And I'm like, where are you hearing this from? Like, where is your reality?
Yeah.
What is the reality of you? Now, granted, there are college degrees and programs that you can go into that where you're going to come out and you're going to make a significant amount of money. That is a rare amount of people. So, like, what's the reality of what you're looking at versus the way you think it should be? Because a lot of the people that I see today are thinking, here's what happens. They set an expectation of the way they think it should be,
Mm-hmm.
and they operate their entire life and their decisions and everything on the way they think it should be. And then they get down to the road and they go, huh, it's not the way it should be. Reality is not what I thought. And so what do? You can watch them all over the social media platforms. They cry, I should be having a marketing job for $140,000. I got these degrees and why isn't this happening? And I got 2 degrees, I should be getting this. And basically they said, there was a viral video of a girl who was, on there kind of crying and saying, I got these, she's holding up her degrees. And she said, they're offering me the job to like be the telemarketer on the phone. She's like, I got 2 degrees, I spent 150, $160,000, $200,000 on these degrees. And now I'm starting at like, $14 an hour. Like
It
that's a
sounds like
disconnect.
entitlement, though, right? A little bit of
Yeah.
entitlement. What do you think, though? One last question. What do you think about projecting a return on investment for a student? And I say family, I keep saying family unit, but a student, a return on investment. For example, I want to be a teacher, and I want to stay in the state that I am, but I want to go to the University of Miami and pay crazy amount of money to only come back to my state to be a teacher, right? So we know what the cap typically is, and they can find it out on the average of what a teacher is going to make in the next 25 years or so. So do you think projecting a return on investment is fair
I think it should be a consideration,
consideration? All right,
for certain, somebody should like if you, as an example, if you love social work and you go get a degree in social work and it costs you, $200,000 over the course of 4 years, you should probably look up how much a social worker makes and realize that you're going to be making $32,000 a year. Okay, and so then you have to make a priority decision or what I would call a trade-off. Are you willing to trade off the education and following your passion for your future? I read a book by an economist, and one of the principles was everything's a trade-off. You're going to trade off if you say I'm going to go into engineering, and I'm going to put in 80 hours a week or 40, 70 hours a week, you're going to trade off time and you're going to get money for it. Now, the question you have to ask is that the trade-off I'm willing to make? I have always been a big believer in education for its own end. So I am not, necessarily a believer where I've told my kids, go into something just so you can get a job. The vocational end when it comes to college and career to me has never been, really what I would say exciting. I love learning and I love the liberal arts, and learning the liberal arts and the humanities is to me a value. And as a result of that, I'm not going to get a tech job in coding or something like that where I'm going to be, making $220,000 a year or whatever it is. And so for me, that was a trade-off I was willing to make. And I probably didn't learn that till later on in life. But if you should look at that and just say, what is my priority? What am I wanting to do with my life? And so I feel like it's really getting down to what are you supposed to be doing while you're on this planet? What are the things that are meaningful for you while you're on this planet and the things that are exciting? I did hear somebody I'll say one time, and to be honest, it's a bit of a discrepancy. They said, don't follow your passion. Like, because a lot of people would say, I'm passionate about art, I'm going to go do art, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're going to come out and you know how hard it is to be an artist.
true,
So you can follow your passions in a way, but at the same time, to your point about the return on investment, is that something you're willing to trade off for providing for your family or providing for your future? What are your priorities? If you want to have a family, if you want to have kids, you want to have, a house, wherever it may be, are you willing to trade that off for the passion that you have for creating art? And though there are people in every field that rise to the top,
true.
because they are excellent and it's because they're passionate about it. And so I think everybody has to make that decision about what am I wanting to do and am I willing to make the trade-offs for that. I was watching a video about a guy who said, who said everybody is looking at me, and this guy's super successful, you know, 7-figure company and all that stuff. And everybody's looking at me and going, why can't I have what you have? Why can't I have what you have? And his point was, well, would you be willing to work 80 hours a week for 10 years?
Right.
That's what I did. You know, oftentimes we look at people and we think that their success is an overnight issue, when
Yep.
most of the time their success is a long period of time of doing a lot of hard work and trading off some of the things like I'm not going out, going drinking with my buddies every weekend. I'm working. I'm not taking vacations and traveling across the globe. I'm working, I'm putting in the time. And so everybody's got to make a decision on what they want to trade off. And if you're not going to trade off this, you may not get that. And of course, there's exceptions to that, but that's the thing that I think people just have to make a decision about. And I encourage everybody to, even my own kids, what do you want to do? And how are you going to provide for your family, or what's important to you? You know.
Here's what I say to most, and tell me what your thoughts are. When they say that I'm not sure, understandably, what they want to do or what program to go into. But if we hit that point of not being sure, if you take an equation of $30,000 a year, just to say 30 times 4, 120 that you would spend going to college, not working, maybe a summer job, a few bucks for gas, but for not knowing what you want to do, you're spending 120 grand in tuition, where in fact, if you reverse that, you could make $30,000 a year, gaining experience and figuring out what you want to do and being ahead 120 grand in 4 years rather than being the hole.
Well, you're ahead 240.
Yeah, well, yeah, right.
You know what I mean? It's like that's a $250,000 difference.
Right.
You should go, what, that should be something to think about.
Yeah.
As a quarter, to your example, let's say you said, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go work in the trades, and I'm going to get an apprenticeship, and I'm going to get paid for it at the same time. And at the end of it, I'm going to come out and be a full trade person. I'm going to have saved $130,000 in college. I have made another 130. I'm $250,000 ahead.
Right.
And now I got a job where I am going to make 60, 70, 80, $90,000 being a contract plumber, electrician, or something like that, because those areas are really lacking. It used to be, and believe me, I'm 100% believer in college, for sure, in university. And it used to be the case that the college degree was kind of like the entrance ticket into jobs that are going to pay you well and going to take care of you and your family and everything like that going forward. I think people should realize that companies are not loyal to you.
Nope.
They owe you nothing except the paycheck. And so if you think that you're going to get into a company and they're going to give you 30 years, just look at what's happening with the government right now. Jobs are getting slashed. People are getting cut. The government is not loyal.
Nope.
Those businesses and companies are not loyal to you. So if you're going to invest all of your efforts and time to get a degree so that you can get a job and think that that company is going to take care of you, that is a false belief. Again, that's a belief in the way it should be as opposed to the way it is. And so, you don't want to get hurt by going, I got fired.
Yep. Hey, I was a product of that 3 times with the corporate downsizing and,
right,
getting thrown into the mix, married with kids. But, there is an element of when a kid graduates and, they get their ego stroked a little bit with that salary and, hey, you're going to be fast tracked into doing this. And then, through the years, the reality could set in, hopefully not. But, like you said, the government and everything that's going on down there, wow, it's a whole nother story. But yeah,
you should have a plan B. Everybody
B.
should have a plan B. And to be fair, you should be utilizing your job to develop your skills to position yourself for opportunities in such a case as that job goes away. Mm-hmm. Nothing in life is guaranteed. And it's one thing to get frustrated and mad and say, I just got, you see them all now on I just lost my job. They just got rid of me. I've been a government employee for whatever. And I'm like, okay, so what did you do the last 10 years to kind of like put yourself in a position to be able to be successful in the private sector? Did you, that's to me, it's kind of like failing to prepare. I'm a big believer in continual learning. Like you should be continually learning, not just sitting back and coasting. Are you preparing yourself? Are you learning? Are you developing skills in different areas so that if something happens to you, you are positioned, to do something else? And again, most people have no problem quitting on an organization
Mhm.
when they get a better opportunity or offer somewhere else. There's
Correct.
no loyalty from me to the company, but then we get mad when the company is not loyal to us. And so,
Mhm.
the reality is it goes both ways. And you just got to understand that companies are not going to be loyal to you. They may tell you things like they appreciate you and you've done a great job and here's your gold watch and everything like that. But first time things get hurt, you're going to be gone, or, they're going to get downsized, or you're going to get laid off, or the company gets bought out and everybody goes to a different company and they say, yeah, we don't like this or we're changing this. So those things can happen in any area. And as you're thinking about a career path, um, what are the things that you can do to position yourself so that you are well prepared for whatever may be the case? And I would talk about that, Tom, in terms of like return on investment. The same thing you said,
Mhm.
am I getting a good return on my investment from this job? Is this job preparing me to develop the skills that I need in whatever area it may be so that I can be successful, that I can grow, that I can add to my resume or CV, to be involved in projects and things like that. So, again, like I think the disconnect is just in the way people think about how things should be for them in their future versus how things really are going to be. And you should deal with reality rather than get frustrated about why it's not the way you think it should be.
Yeah, that's conditioning your mind, right? That's yeah, I get that, but not but the short attention span that everybody has today. To your point with the
It's
social media,
true. It's true.
right?
And to your point, I think the research bears it out. You're not able to really think about long-term consequences until your late 20s. Like
True.
your brain has not developed neurologically for the capacity to recognize and understand long-term consequences. And so in those early days when people are going to college and when people are getting early on in their career, they're not thinking about what's going to happen when I'm 40. They're just like, let's do this. I'm going to do this. I got a great job. I'm going to do this. Let's go out and party and everything like that. So, that's where there may be opportunities for people to get mentors that are farther down the career path on them. I remember talking to somebody, they're a police officer. Okay, so they got a job and they were partnered up with they were just starting their career as a police officer, and they partnered up with a guy that was a little bit older. And as they were talking, the guy said, do yourself a favor, take 10% of your paycheck and put it into this account. Don't
Mhm.
even talk about it. You're not going to miss it. Don't worry about it. Just commit to doing this. You will thank me. And so I was talking with the younger guy, but it's now 25 years down into his career. And he said, I am so thankful
Wow.
that I had a mentor that told me back then to do something that I had no idea about. It wasn't on my mind. I wasn't even thinking about it, but I took his advice and I put that money aside. And so now I have this whole thing 25 years down the road. And I said, well, you should go back and thank him.
Yeah.
But like to have some older mentor that can, talk about things that you're not thinking about. And you shouldn't be expected to think about those things because they're just not on
True.
your mind.
True. I just wish I could shake some younger individuals who think, they're older. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Whatever. Right.
Yeah. They don't listen. And guess what? I don't think I listened
We
back when
didn't
I was
either.
that
Yep.
age. Sometimes it takes experience to get there. The wise and the wisdom books of all time will say, if you're wise, you will listen to some of those people. You will put yourself in positions to listen and heed the advice of your elders.
Yep.
But we often think, oh, you don't know anything. What are you? You know. So
Yeah.
it's good wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Jeff, you're an expert in communication, leadership, and persuasion. I truly appreciate your time. Good stuff.
Hey, it's a great conversation, and I
Yes.
appreciate you reaching out to me. Love doing it. If I can ever be of help in any other way, I'm at your service. Appreciate the opportunity today, Tom. Thanks so much for it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll talk.